Okay, teachers, so what we're going to run through here is the presentation that will be given to the students during Panther Time on our first iPad training session on Tuesday. If you could, please make sure that all the students for your team are in the Middle Language Arts Social Studies room so that we can do this together in one large group setting. First, let's start with this. We're going to talk to them briefly about how this is all going to be conducted during Panther Time. That is all of the training for the iPad sessions. During this time, we're going to be going through quite a few different types of apps, and the reality is that it's about how to use iPads in a productive, educational manner. Because the reality is that while they do know how to use technology for fun and for gaming, there's a very different approach when it comes to actually using the device in productive manners. Next, we're going to talk to them briefly about the iPad user agreement, and if you need a copy of it, please let me know. I do have plenty of extra copies. The first section relates to educational use, with some priorities that we want to say is that it's not for fun media type of use, but it is for educational use. And we also have to consider the fact that there are certain types of things that can be done on this technology that goes against education in terms of things related to academic integrity. That will be a specific point of interest both now and later on. Beyond this, we also want everybody to understand that given this is an educational device that is owned by the school district, we are able to access what they have been looking at on their iPad at any point in time, and that is part of our legal right to do that as a district. So please let the kids know and please remind them that even if they think they're blocking us from being able to see, we can see everything they do in the devices, and in fact, as soon as they enroll, we already know what apps they're putting on, and we can tell you specifically what apps are on what iPads. In terms of general care, we want to make sure of a couple things here in specific. First, obviously we don't want screens breaking, and we think that we have a case that will protect against this pretty well, but we do have to encourage them to take care of the iPads, not setting heavy things on them, not throwing them around, things along those lines, keeping them away from food and water, and also not losing them. They need to know where their iPad is at all times. And while we will put the Find My iPad app onto the iPads and encourage the children to set these up and get them prepared just in case they lose them, we do want them to be very cautious and know where their iPads are at all times. That's an important thing. In terms of being able to mark up the iPad cases, we do not want that to happen. So what we are going to allow for the children to do when they go home after school is to, in the back of their iPad, to place something that says their name and their section underneath the iPad case that's see-through on the back. We don't want them covering the barcode or the camera or the other gap at the top of the iPad case. And also, we need to encourage the children to re-secure the case tightly as well. Obviously, we don't want the iPad falling out. This case is pretty solid as long as it is on correctly. The next section on the iPad user agreement is for specific restrictions, such as you're not allowed to take the iPad into the restroom, no matter what. You are also not allowed to take this into the locker room during PE class. Now, if we're talking about being during football season, that's a little different because there are locks on the lockers, and as long as it stays in a bag, we're not going to say you cannot do that. That would be a logistical problem for us. But for gym class purposes, we don't want them going into the gym locker room. We want them either in their own lockers, where they should be locked, or in a classroom with a teacher if the teacher agrees upon that. That's something that we're not going to tell them up front, but that's something that you as teachers will be able to come in and chime in on your own. Also, you are not allowed to take pictures of anybody who does not want their picture to be taken. This is something that we take extremely seriously, and please emphasize this to the students. They think it's funny, but the reality is this causes a lot of problems, and this is something that we will not tolerate. They call it sniping in case you ever hear them talking about it, but that's something that we cannot allow. And finally, specifically, plagiarism is a concern of ours. We're looking into other ways that we can check on plagiarism for all of their work, given that that becomes much easier to do now. But we do want to remind them of what plagiarism is, specifically copying somebody else's work and claiming it as your own, which specifically includes websites. So they cannot copy from websites. They cannot email homework from somebody or from one person to another and claim it's theirs. That is something that we will deal with very severely and very strictly because that is an academic integrity type of concern. Next, for repairs and damages, it is not the role of the children to actually get involved in repairing and doing anything else to their iPads. There's something called jailbreaking their iPads where they can put on specific software that goes against what Apple has. We do not want the children doing this. So please let us know if you know of a child who has done anything like this. Will you be able to tell what it is? Probably not, but you might hear the students talking about it, and if you hear about it, please let us know and we will address it. If the iPad itself is broken, please tell the children there not to fix it. That is not their job, because that's something that could result in further damage to the iPad, and we want to handle these the correct way, so please encourage them not to do this. And the reality is that the children are responsible financially for this, so please remind them that if they damage the iPad, that's something that is going to come back to them directly, so they shouldn't do that. Now, for downloading apps, this is the next part, and this kind of is past our user agreement. There are two different ways in which children are going to be getting apps. The first is from us. We will be pushing the apps out, and that's a system we are going to set up here in just a few minutes. The second thing is that the children are actually able to create their own Apple IDs and also download their own apps. However, given that this is an educational iPad, we are asking that they only download apps that are educational in nature. So please encourage them to stick with that philosophy. Something else that we need to make sure is set up here that we're going to go over very quickly is that in the App Store, you can see, not the App Store, in the settings. So if you click on the settings gear and then you over on the left go to iTunes and App Store, we need to make sure that automatic downloads are on for apps and updates. So if they click on it, it will send the green over here. That's what we need to have for apps and updates. Maybe books later on. That's something that we haven't really played with just yet. Finally, enrolling with the Upper St. Clair School District. We are going to be sending out an invitation. I do not have a screenshot for this, but it is going to ask them to agree to enroll in our program. Whenever they receive this message, which will be a push notification or something that just pops up on their iPad screen, they must push yes, they would like to accept this, and then they also need to type in their Apple ID and password. Finally, if we have any time left, which I don't know if we will talk to them about getting synced up on their iPad. There are a couple different email types of apps that can be used. What we're going to work with them on is this native Gmail app. Now, the way that our system sets it up is all that they have to do actually is type in their email password. What we would like to do, and what I want to explain to you, this is also for teachers here, is that when you look at your account information, here's the way that it works. The name right here is the name that the people are going to see when you get an email from them. So if you make this something like Upper St. Clair, when somebody receives an email, they're going to receive it and it's going to say from Upper St. Clair, so you don't really want to do that. Then you type in your email and password. For them, all they need to do is type in their password. Description is what you then see. So let's say you have 5 email accounts that are synced onto your device. For you, you might want to label this. So I have mine labeled as USC Gmail. That's something that you can do, and the way that you would access this is through your settings and then mail, contacts, and calendars. So it's a quick little run through here. We'll see what we can get through during the class here today. If we don't get through anything that's important related to the Gmail, we will save that for the following day training. Okay? I hope that helps, and if you have any questions, please let me know.